Chosen one, this message didn't just show up on your screen. Heaven sent it straight to your spirit. You've walked through valleys that others mocked from a distance. You've endured battles they couldn't see, and instead of support, many gave you their laughter. But God saw everything. This is not the end of your story. This is the turning point. The very people who laughed at your struggle are about to witness your rise, not because you forced it, not because you begged for recognition, but because God's favor is about to make you the lesson they never saw coming. Let's go deeper, chosen one. In 7 chapters, you'll see exactly how the struggle shaped you and how the favor that's coming will silence every critic. Before we go any further, make sure you like, share, and subscribe, because this message isn't just content. It's a confirmation that your struggle wasn't in vain and your rise is right on time. If your spirit feels this frequency, type 77 in the comments right now. That number isn't random. It's a prophetic code, a signal to heaven that you're aligned, awake, and ready to walk into the favor that was always yours, even when others laughed at your pain. Not everyone will stay to the end. Only those who were truly chosen will catch what's being released. Because this message carries more than words. It carries divine reversal. Your story is about to shift from ridicule to revelation, from struggle to stage, from overlooked to undeniable. And don't just listen once. This word is layered with prophetic depth. Rewatch it whenever your soul needs strength. Each time, a new truth will rise to the surface, a key to unlock the blessing that was hidden in your brokenness. Let's go deep. Your favor is about to speak for itself. Chapter 1. They laughed because they lacked vision. Chosen one, the reason they laughed at you was never because you lacked power. It was because they lacked perspective. They didn't understand what they were looking at. They saw your outer struggle, but had no clue about your inner strength. They misread your silence as weakness. They interpreted your process as failure. They confused your humility with defeat. But what they couldn't see was what God was doing behind the scenes. They were quick to judge you because their vision was limited to what the natural eye could observe. They couldn't perceive that what looked like stillness was actually spiritual movement. They thought you had nothing going for you, when in truth, heaven was building something through you that couldn't be rushed, faked, or imitated. While they mocked your slowness, God was anchoring your foundation. While they laughed at your setbacks, angels were being assigned to your future. While they questioned your value, the heavens were confirming your name in places your feet hadn't even reached yet. You were never behind. You were being positioned. You were never lost. You were being led through a divine route that didn't make sense to the world, but made perfect sense to your purpose. Many of the people who laughed had never been through a wilderness themselves. They had no reference for what spiritual development looks like. So when you withdrew to heal, they called it hiding. When you chose faith over shortcuts, they called it foolishness. But that's what happens when people lack spiritual vision. They can't recognize the hand of God when it's not wrapped in comfort or success. They don't realize that some of God's greatest vessels are forged in fire, not favor. They don't understand that before every elevation, there's a preparation. And before a crown is placed, a cross is carried. They assumed your story was over because they saw no visible movement. But God was working in the roots. He was deepening your wisdom, sharpening your hearing, breaking off generational limitations, and installing divine authority into your character. He was removing your dependence on people so you could lean fully into His voice. He was stripping you of false identity so that when you finally emerge, you wouldn't just have success, You would have depth, clarity, and power. They thought they were watching your end, but they were actually watching your beginning. The very thing they laughed at is becoming the very thing they'll study. Your testimony is about to become a template for others to follow. The delay they mocked is about to become the door that heaven opens with your name on it. The silence they laughed at is about to break open into a sound they can't ignore. You were never supposed to fit into their timeline. Your process was never going to look like theirs. That's because you were never called to ordinary impact. You were called to divine influence. Impact that outlives applause and reaches generations. And that kind of calling takes time. It takes pruning. It takes being misunderstood. It takes being underestimated by people who only know how to respect what they can measure. But now, your season is changing. The planting is over. The revealing is beginning. And the same ones who couldn't see you will no longer be able to deny you. Not because of ego, but because of evidence. Chapter 2. Your struggle was a sacred stage. Your struggle wasn't a detour. It was the main road heaven chose for your becoming. What looked like delay was actually design. What felt like rejection was redirection. You weren't just suffering. You were being shaped. You weren't just in pain. You were in process. Everything you went through was holy ground. The tears you cried alone. The nights you wrestled in silence. The prayers you whispered through clenched teeth. The moments when nothing made sense, yet you held on. All of it was sacred. God was writing a story so deep, so powerful, so redemptive, it had to be written in silence before it could be shouted in public. The pain, the pressure, the crushing isolation, they were all invitations to transformation. You were not being punished. You were being prepared for a promise that requires endurance. A promise that requires purity. A promise that requires character stronger than charisma. God took you the long way because your foundation had to be different. You couldn't be built on public applause. You had to be rooted in something deeper than affirmation. You had to learn to walk without a crowd. You had to learn to believe even when you had no proof. That's why the journey broke everything that was shallow in you, so what was eternal could rise. Every lonely chapter was necessary. Every hidden season had purpose. While others were performing, you were transforming. While others were being seen, you were being sent. While others were chasing platforms, heaven was building a throne within you. You were never forgotten. You were not abandoned. You were under construction by divine hands. When you felt unseen, you were being shielded. When you felt unheard, you were being strengthened. When you felt stuck, heaven was anchoring you so you wouldn't fall when your time came. God didn't let you break. He let you bend. He let you bend under the weight of purpose, not to destroy you, but to develop the strength required to carry what's coming. You thought you were being buried, but you were being planted. And now you're about to bloom in places they swore you'd never grow. You weren't being overlooked. You were being overhauled. Your heart was being refined. Your motives were being purified. Your spirit was being made sensitive to the voice of God. Because where you're going, you can't afford to carry what used to bind you. And now, everything you carried in silence is about to speak. Everything you endured in the dark is about to shine. Every sacrifice you made that no one clapped for is about to be honored publicly. The same rooms that ignored you will now be shifted by your presence. The same voices that once mocked your silence will be silenced by your breakthrough. Because you didn't fold, because you didn't quit, because you chose refinement over revenge. You chose purpose over popularity. You chose faith when you had every reason to doubt. You chose to stand in truth even when it cost you relationships. Your struggle was not a mistake. It was a message being carved into your life. Your scars are not shameful. They're sacred. They tell a story the world needs to hear. And now, you're not just healed, you're anointed. You're not just wiser, you're weighty. You don't just carry words, you carry revelation. You don't just have influence, you carry impact. Chapter 3, God is turning your pain into their revelation. Chosen one, what you went through wasn't just personal, it was prophetic. That pain wasn't pointless, that struggle wasn't silent. Heaven was using your suffering to plant a seed that would one day speak louder than any sermon. And now, the time has come. Your scars are about to become someone else's awakening. Your survival will be their sign. Your breakthrough will be their wake-up call. This next move of God in your life isn't about proving them wrong. It's about showing them who God really is. It's not about revenge. It's about revelation. Because while they saw you as broken, heaven saw you as chosen, and everything you endured in the shadows was preparation for a divine unveiling. The same mouths that doubted you are about to declare, "This had to be God," because the elevation that's coming can't be explained by effort. The glow on your life can't be traced back to influence, connections, or credentials. It will be obvious. This is favor that can only come from above. God is not raising you up so you can boast. He's raising you up to bear witness. Your life is becoming living proof that grace is greater than gossip, that purpose is stronger than pain, that obedience still opens doors man can't shut. They thought you were finished because you fell. They thought the silence meant you were stuck. They thought your delay meant you were denied. But they didn't know the God who was rebuilding you in secret, who was refining your spirit while they were watching your status. And now, everything they laughed at is becoming everything they learned from. Your faith is about to convict their pride. Your consistency is about to correct their assumptions. Your resilience is about to reveal the real source of your strength. God is about to take your pain and turn it into a prophetic mirror. They'll look at you and be forced to see what they've been blind to. Not just who you are, but who He is. Not just what you overcame, but what they ignored. Not just what you carried, but what they criticized while you carried it. Chosen one, this is bigger than you. This elevation isn't for applause, it's for alignment. God is using your story to shift the room, to shake the sleepers, to humble the proud, to open eyes that were spiritually closed. You were never meant to fit in. You were meant to wake people up. You were never just going through it. You were being poured into. So one day, you could pour out. The tears you cried in isolation are about to produce revelation in those who once judged you. The pain you carried in silence is about to break chains in others who never had the courage to speak. God is flipping the script in front of everyone who misread your chapters. They thought your story was about survival, but your story was never about just making it. It's about mirroring the mercy of God. You are the message now. You are the evidence that endurance produces glory, that purity has power, that obedience will always be honored, even if it's delayed. God is about to turn your testimony into a turning point, not just for you, but for them. And the most powerful part, you don't have to say a word, because this time, your fruit will speak for itself. Chapter 4. What they can't explain, they can't deny. They may never admit how they dismissed you. They may never confess how they laughed behind your back. They may never own up to how they doubted your purpose, minimized your vision, or labeled your process as failure. But what they can't do is deny what's about to happen next, because the move of God on your life is going to be undeniable, unmistakable, unexplainable by logic, connections, or effort. It won't be because of a brand. It won't be because of popularity. It won't be because you played the game. It will be because you stayed in alignment. And heaven decided it was time. You're not rising by their rules. You're rising by God's hand. And when God lifts someone, no one can block it, slow it, or take the credit. This next season is not about proving yourself. It's about revealing what was already spoken over you before they ever knew your name. They'll look at your life and try to trace the source. They'll search for explanations, but there will be none. They'll scroll for your strategy and still miss the secret, because the oil on your life wasn't produced in public. It was pressed out in private, in the silence, in the wilderness, in the furnace of isolation, tears, and obedience. Doors are about to open that your resume didn't qualify you for, not because you weren't capable, but because God wanted it known that this was His doing. Rooms will call for you that you never knocked on. Tables will be prepared for you in the presence of the same people who tried to keep you out of the room entirely. And they won't be able to explain it, but they also won't be able to ignore it. Opportunities are about to chase you down, not because you begged for them, but because you were faithful when no one was watching. While others were flexing, you were fasting. While others were branding, you were building in silence. While others were cutting corners, you were carrying your cross. And heaven saw it all. God is about to bless you in such a way that no one will be able to take credit, and no one will be able to look away. Even those who swore you would never make it will be forced to sit back and say, "I don't know how they got there, but something greater is on their life." That's what favor does. It bypasses what people thought was required. It overrides natural systems. It confounds the proud. It elevates the humble. And it puts the spotlight right back on the God who made it possible. You're entering a season where your life will be the answer to questions they didn't even know they were asking. You'll walk into spaces carrying peace they can't define, speak with authority they didn't see coming, create with a flow that no algorithm can replicate, and move with a confidence that comes only from surviving what was meant to destroy you. They won't understand it, but they won't be able to deny it, because when God moves, even your enemies become your witnesses. This isn't about revenge. This is about revelation. This is God putting His fingerprint on your life so clearly, so boldly, so powerfully, that even those who don't believe in Him will have to acknowledge something higher is on their side. Chapter 5. Your rise will rewrite the narrative. They had their version of your story. They spoke with confidence about your failure before the ink was even dry on your beginning. They labeled you early, judged you quickly, and dismissed you completely. Too soft, too slow, too broken, too lost. They saw your silence as weakness. They mistook your humility for helplessness. They called your obedience foolish because they couldn't see the one you were following. But God never needed their agreement to begin your elevation. He heard every insult. He watched every eye roll. He saw how they counted you out before you even had a chance to grow. And now, He's about to make an example out of you, not in shame, but in glory. You are becoming everything they said you could never be, and far beyond that. And the most powerful part? Not because you shifted to meet their standards, not because you changed your voice to sound like theirs, but because you stayed true to God when no one was clapping for you. You didn't sell out. You didn't trade integrity for influence. You didn't choose comfort over calling. You stayed planted when it was easier to run. You remained kind when it was easier to grow cold. You kept serving when it felt like no one saw you. And now, the harvest is coming. This rise is different. This isn't just a breakthrough. It's a reintroduction. The same name they once joked about will now be spoken with respect. The same story they mocked will now be studied as a blueprint, because your life is about to become a living reference point for what happens when someone chooses purpose over popularity. Your rise will rewrite the narrative, not just for you, but for everyone who was silently watching, wondering if staying faithful was worth it. You are the answer to that question. You are the proof that the narrow road leads to wide open doors. You are the fruit of seeds planted in tears, now blooming in power. Those who once laughed will now listen. Those who gossiped will now be guided. Those who doubted your path will now desire your peace. And here's the shift. You won't need to defend yourself. You won't need to clap back. You won't need to post your progress to prove a point, because your presence will preach louder than your words ever could. Your story will speak volumes. Your life will declare, this is what it looks like when God writes the narrative. You're no longer the underdog. You're no longer the one they whisper about. You're the one they learn from. You're not the example of failure. You're the evidence of favor. And when they ask how you did it, you'll simply point to the one who carried you the whole way. Because what they thought was your ending was just the middle, and the ending is about to be written in grace, glory, and greatness. Chapter 6. Your favor is going public. There was a time when no one saw you, a time when your prayers felt like whispers in an empty room, a time when your obedience was invisible, your faithfulness unnoticed, your tears unseen, but heaven saw it all. And now, what was cultivated in private is about to go public. This is the revealing season, but not for applause, not for validation, not for clout or attention. This unveiling is for purpose, because what you carry was never meant to stay hidden. It was meant to heal, to help, to shift. Everything you walked through, the pain, the pressure, the persecution, prepared you for this. And now, the light is about to hit what was growing in the dark. God is about to spotlight what He planted in the secret place. This is your emergence, not the version that's filtered for platforms, but the raw, refined, real version of you. The version that's been crushed, but is still full of oil. The version that's been rejected, but still radiates joy. The version that doesn't need to prove anything, because God already approved everything. Your life is about to show others that pain isn't the end. That rejection isn't final. That favor doesn't follow perfection. It follows those who didn't fold. You endured the wilderness, and now you're stepping into the promise, not as a survivor, but as a vessel. You'll be called into places your struggle prepared you for, not because of titles, but because of the authority that now rests on your voice. You won't need to shout to be heard. Your spirit will carry weight. Your presence will shift rooms before you say a word. Your story will inspire healing in people who didn't even know they needed it. You are stepping into divine visibility, not for fame, but for impact. Not for attention, but for assignments. Not to be seen, but to be sent. And here's the divine twist. The very ones who laughed will be the first to say, only God could have done that. The ones who called you delusional will call you inspirational. The ones who dismissed your purpose will quote your process. The ones who thought you were finished will watch God begin again, with you, in a way they never imagined. You didn't chase the stage, and now the stage is calling you. You didn't force your way in, and now the doors are opening without you knocking. You didn't beg for favor, but favor is about to announce you, because God can trust you now. He saw you in the hidden place and knew you wouldn't fumble the public one. He watched you walk with integrity when compromise would have been easier. He heard your yes when no one else was around to applaud it. And now, he's about to put his stamp on you in full view. This is not hype. This is harvest. This is not performance. This is purpose, wrapped in divine timing. Your favor is going public. Your name is being spoken in rooms you've never entered. Your influence is expanding without striving. Your testimony is being magnified for maximum impact. And through it all, you'll remain grounded because you remember what it cost to get here. You'll walk with grace, speak with power, and live as living proof that God still honors the faithful. This is your unveiling. This is your release. And this is only the beginning. Chapter 7. You are the lesson they never expected. Chosen one, this is not just a comeback. This is divine confirmation. This is heaven putting a seal on what you already knew deep in your spirit, that you were never disqualified, never forgotten, never ordinary. They thought they buried you, but God was building you. They thought they ended your story, but heaven was just turning the page. You are not here to fit in. You were born to redefine the conversation. You were rejected, not because you lacked value, but because they lacked vision. They couldn't see what God saw. They couldn't perceive the greatness still under construction. But now, the stone they rejected is becoming the cornerstone. You are becoming the reference point they never imagined they'd learn from. You are the lesson they never expected. Your life is about to reveal everything their assumptions tried to hide. They thought you were weak, but you were being refined. They thought you were lost, but God was leading you through the secret path. They thought your silence meant surrender, but it was preparation. They looked at your process and laughed, not realizing they were mocking what God was molding. God didn't just preserve you. He positioned you strategically, intentionally, prophetically, not just to rise, but to rearrange rooms, to shake systems, to walk into places that were built without you in mind and become the very peace they now can't function without. You're not coming to clap back. You're coming to set the record straight without saying a word. This isn't revenge. This is redemption. You're not silencing your critics with anger. You're silencing them with results. The fruit is about to speak louder than their gossip ever did, because you are walking proof that favor isn't earned, it's assigned. You didn't work for this oil. You were chosen to carry it. You didn't force this rise. You yielded to the process when others quit in frustration. You didn't compromise for acceptance. You were set apart for glory. The version of you they mocked, that was the version under construction. They laughed too soon. They judged too early. Because now they'll witness the version of you that carries heaven's signature. The anointing, the authority, the peace, the presence. It's undeniable. This next season won't require a microphone. It won't require a debate, because your favor will do all the talking. Your presence will carry the message. Your walk will preach louder than their opinions, and your story will remind the world of a truth they keep forgetting. Never mock what God is still molding. You were the underdog, the outsider, the overlooked, but God specializes in raising those that others count out. You are the exception, the disruption, the prophetic twist in their predictable story. Your elevation isn't just about you. It's about everyone watching, everyone doubting, everyone wondering if faithfulness still matters in a world of shortcuts. And now, they'll know. They'll see what happens when someone stays obedient in obscurity. They'll see what glory looks like when it's birthed through pain. They'll see that the most powerful ones aren't always loud. They're rooted, and they'll never forget what they saw through your eyes. So walk boldly, take your seat, speak when God tells you to, and stay silent when your fruit is already shouting. This is the chapter where the world watches and wonders, how did they make it through all that and still carry light? And your life will whisper the answer, God.